A clutch of petitions challenging Article 35A are expected to be heard in the Supreme Court this week. The law that prohibits non-residents of Jammu and Kashmir from buying property or getting government jobs in the state has been challenged in court. Kashmiri politicians, including former Chief Ministers Omar Abdullah and Mehbooba Mufti, have warned that any attempt to repeal Article 35A or Article 370 that accords special status to Jammu and Kashmir would result in unrest in the state. Calls to change these laws have been growing louder, especially from the ruling BJP, in wake of the attack on CRPF Jawans in Pulwama. Now, to help us understand why Article 35A has become a political flashpoint, I'm speaking now to Professor Sheikh Showkat Hussain, who's Head and Dean of the School of Legal Studies at the Central University of Kashmir. He's joining us from Srinagar today. I'm also joined by constitutional lawyer and Rajya Sabha member nominated by the Congress Party, KTS Tulsi. Welcome to both of you, and thank you for speaking with us here at Bloomberg Quint. Professor Hussain, I'm going to first ask you to explain to us why even the legal challenge to Article 35A has become such a huge flashpoint in the valley. Why is there so much sensitivity about it?
Actually, Kashmiris have been very much sensitive about the demography of the state right from earliest times, and earliest history of Kashmir says that they would not allow others to settle down in the valley. And this practice continued in medieval times and during the times of Maharajas who ruled Kashmir up to 1947. And in 1927, Maharaja Hari Singh promulgated an order under which he defined who is a state subject and who can be a permanent resident of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, Article 35A, after inception of Indian rule, within the Indian Constitution, incorporated through a constitutional order of 1954, protects such laws which have been promulgated by Maharaja and have been reiterated by him in 1932 and again have been mentioned in the state constitution and constitution order of 1939, that such laws cannot be challenged on any ground on the basis of Part 3rd of the Indian Constitution. You know that Part 3rd of the Indian Constitution under Article 19 gives right of freedom of movement and residence to anyone, in any Indian citizen across whole of India. Now, there are exceptions to these fundamental rights, and 35A is one of such exceptions that has been incorporated into it through Constitution Order of 1954. And this, any Indian who may claim to settle down in J&K permanently and acquiring immovable property cannot do it because of this 35A.
Okay.
He cannot do it because of this 35A. That is the protection.
Yeah, I understand the law. I understand the law. And the question now is, why has it also become a political flashpoint? Because you see some of the comments coming from two former chief ministers.
It has been a political flashpoint because so many leaders, including Mohan Bhagwat of RSS, have been advocating a demographic transformation of Jammu and Kashmir. In one of his speeches delivered at Bhubaneswar a few years back, he mentioned that we must do the same thing to Kashmir as has been done by China to Xinjiang by changing its demography. And that is the only solution to Kashmir problem. Now, these statements on the part of RSS have created apprehensions over here, and the brazenness that central government is depicting towards minorities and other marginalized groups has created apprehension that center is determined to do same thing as has been pronounced by Mohan Bhagwat long back, to change the demography of the state. That is what has made it a flashpoint, and apprehensive. Kashmiris have become very much apprehensive.
Yeah, it is also alarming, and let me bring in Mr. KTS Tulsi. It's also a bit alarming when two former chief ministers of the state put out such strong statements and actually warn of violence if any such issue happens. Now, the fact is that this is in the Supreme Court. As per the latest, the representative of the Jammu and Kashmir government has said that we are not going to move ahead on this until there is an elected government. Remember, there's no government in the state since June. But I want you to explain to us the political context of this as well, Mr. Tulsi, because there are a lot of calls for repeal of 35A, for 370 in the light of the terror attacks in Pulwama. What is the connection being made? How will, allowing all Indians to buy property in Kashmir be any kind of a solution to the kind of terror strikes that we saw?
You see, as explained by the other co-panelists, right from 1927 there were laws that did not permit persons from other areas to come and settle down in Jammu and Kashmir because they were very sensitive about the demography. The instrument of accession was evolved as a result of prolonged negotiations between the government and the popular government as well as the Maharaja. It was on the advice of the popular government that the Maharaja signed the instrument of accession, and that was on the condition of, that's part and parcel of Article 370. If anybody would talk about abrogation of Article 370, it will perhaps reopen the question of accession and unnecessarily rake up an international issue. So I really think that the government should consider all aspects. Of course, we are responsible for maintaining peace in Jammu and Kashmir because the international border, and we have that power under Article 370 itself. So therefore, I don't think every issue needs to be tinkered with merely because it was the Congress government which evolved that consensus. This is part of history. We have to think about the future and not necessarily go into the past all the time.
Do you have a view, Mr. Tulsi, do you have a view on the basic demand? Do you have a view on the basic demand? I mean, there are three sets of petitions in the Supreme Court which will possibly commence hearing the issue this week. Do you have a view on the set of demands? The first one of them was from 2014, and these are NGOs and individuals who have filed these petitions. But it is, of course, a well-known demand of the BJP as well. Do you have a view on the basic demand which asks why any Indian citizen cannot buy property or live in Jammu and Kashmir like they can in any other state of India?
No, Jammu and Kashmir is not the only state where there is where only the persons who are residing there can buy property. Himachal has the similar laws. There are several scheduled tribes who have been conferred constitutional protection, and outsiders are not allowed to go and settle in their settlements. Similarly, in Meghalaya, there are scheduled tribes. This was the part of nation building. At that time, the people, there were certain people who had to be satisfied about and assured that their rights will not be affected. Now, that's a constitutional promise that was made to those people. We can't go back on it without reopening the wounds of partition. So I think that this sort of a talk by anybody that 35 can be abrogated, 370 can be abrogated, is very irresponsible because it creates apprehensions and may be part of the reason for escalated violence. Violence has to be controlled by the government, and for that there are several measures, but it's unfortunate that in the recent past, in the past few years, the loss of lives of the civilians as well as our forces has escalated, has gone up much more. The Prime Minister has given the solution that we have to win their hearts and their minds. That is exactly the approach which India should adopt towards Kashmir.
Professor Hussain, one of the three petitions in the Supreme Court is of a Kashmiri woman who has challenged Article 35A on the grounds of gender equality. This is, again, an argument often made against the law as it exists now, that it discriminates on the basis of gender. If a Kashmiri woman marries outside, say, the state or an outsider, her husband and children lose rights, while for a man, it's not the same. Don't you think that that is an anomaly which needs to be addressed?
Actually, this issue has been deliberated several times by even courts. And this basically has been decided even by High Court long back. Every country previously followed citizenship laws where citizenship of husband would be the citizenship of his wife as well. And Britain had a similar law. On the basis of that law, High Court of Jammu and Kashmir in one of the judgments mentioned that this law is okay because husband's nationality becomes the nationality of his wife as well. Subsequently, there was another judgment, Sushil Sawhney case, where they mentioned that this is problematic because it is a bit discriminatory. However, the legislature is authorized to modify the citizenship state subject laws of Jammu and Kashmir to accommodate these apprehensions. And that judgment too created a lot of controversy. Now, that is one aspect of it. Given the broader picture of Kashmir being a state which is divided between India and Pakistan, whose demography remains concern of Kashmiris across board, and Kashmir is an international issue already. Now, if you try to make people feel that in one pretext or other pretexts, the state subject laws or protections granted to domiciles of Jammu and Kashmir will be diluted, people become very much sensitive. And one of the manifestations of that sensitiveness is that they remain a bit conservative, a bit apprehensive once you talk in terms of such laws. And they feel that it will open floodgates of population moving from mainland India to Jammu and Kashmir and ultimately changing its demography. You know that Jammu and Kashmir is a small state, only has maybe 1 crore population as compared to India, which has 130 crore population. And again, it is not only in Kashmir. In United States, they have reserves for aborigines, the Red Indians, Indian reserves they call, where they don't allow others to purchase land. And that same type of principle is followed over here. People should not be parochial and too much sensitive on this issue, because if you feel that anyone can come and settle down over here, why not to open the citizenship of India for anyone across the globe and ask him to be free to settle in any part of India?
It's not exactly the same thing, is it, Professor Hussain? It's not exactly the same thing. Jammu and Kashmir is a state of India.
Jammu and Kashmir prior to 1947, it was a princely state.
Yes, I know the history. I know the history, sir.
This is the relic of the same situation and same status.
I just want to take
that
from
Jammu
what
and Kashmir
KTS Tulsi said. I just want to take from what KTS Tulsi said a little while ago, where he said that, you know, beyond a point, let's stop talking about the past. Let's talk about the current day scenario. Do you think that there is a way forward on this, especially if 35A and 370 and any conversation around them is not posed as a threat to the residents of Jammu and Kashmir, but as a matter of discussion? Do you think that there would be more openness about it in that case?
Actually, long back, previously in Jammu and Kashmir, one could come and invest and establish a factory or anything else on lease for 40 years. Sheikh Abdullah changed that law and allowed people to be here, not own a property, rather they can invest and have it on lease for 90 years. Now, at that juncture, so many arguments were given in favor of that amendment, and we were told that so much investment would flow into Kashmir. Nothing of that sort has come. And same type of arguments are repeated at this juncture. Actually, the basic issue is people of Jammu and Kashmir are dissatisfied and they are apprehensive. And these apprehensions are raison d'etre or cause of the disturbances over here, cause of the escalated violence. Now, if you make them more apprehensive and if you make them more, put them to more fear of being marginalized or maybe made a minority within the state of Jammu and Kashmir, that violence is definitely going to escalate manifold and will have ramifications for whole of the subcontinent.
Yes.
And this is what even those politicians keep on cautioning who have been supportive of the status quo and who have been what we call over here so-called mainstream politicians, Mehbooba Mufti or Omar Abdullah. Everyone is on board on this issue that demography of the Jammu and Kashmir cannot be compromised at any cost. And they see all the moves.
Yes, sir. I want to ask you a legal question on this, Mr. Tulsi, because it's also being argued that since the decision on 35A was by a presidential order, it didn't go through parliament, that there is an argument against it. Do you think there are legal grounds to this challenge under the Constitution of India?
You see, because the matter is pending in the Supreme Court, I don't think it will be correct for me to get into merits. All that I would say is that the Prime Minister's statement needs to be taken to its logical conclusion, where the Prime Minister has said that we are fighting terror, we are not fighting Kashmiris. And for Kashmiris, let the trust deficit that is there be removed, and let the hearts and minds of the people be integrated with India, with Indian philosophy, with Indian way of life, and with the idea of India. I'm sure that again we can have peace and calm in the Switzerland of India.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, KTS Tulsi and, of course, Professor Hussain, for joining us on this discussion today and helping us understand why the entire debate around Article 35A and the demands to repeal it have become such a contentious issue.